Welcome to the Operate Podcast, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at company building from the perspective of the builders themselves. This is how we operate.
Hi, everybody. This is Carrie, and I've got Jeremy Redman with me today, and we are doing a bit of a crossover podcast swap, dual interview. Let's have some fun. And so
I love this.
Yes, why not? So we, Jeremy and I have known each other for well over a year now, and he has a great startup that he is building up in Los Angeles. And he came down and visited, I think it's been about a year, right after we opened
pre-COVID
Operate Studio. Yes. And so we're going to use this as a time to catch up on all that he's been up to over the last year. And he also has a really great podcast himself. And so we're going to just, chat a bit.
Chat. I love, can you hear me okay? Is everything good?
I can.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, first off, I love you, Carrie. I'm a big fan of the show. What is it? Big fan, long-time listener, first-time caller.
There you go. There you go. I love it.
First time podcaster with you.
How many episodes do you have of yours?
40?
Okay.
I want to say, I haven't released one in the longest time, and I hate myself for it.
But you're building a company and you're growing, so we're going to talk about that. It happens. So I'm closing in on 100 episodes.
Wow! Congratulations, man. That's truly
not there
magnificent.
Yet, but it's been a ton of fun.
Well, I think the consistency is king.
Yeah.
Right. So it is the kingmaker. And you've been incredibly consistent, especially on LinkedIn. I see that you've got is this video being recorded right now too?
We are recording video, but we'll see whether we distribute it or not. We can always.
Come on, this has got to be distributed.
Okay.
This is going to be the most downloaded episode of all time.
There you go.
If my email list has anything to say about it.
There you go.
So what has kept you? I'm interested. What has kept you? I think when we first met, you didn't have this, right? Or you were just starting this.
The pod?
Yeah.
Oh, I started about 5-6 months before we opened the studio.
Got you. Yeah, and you opened my eyes to what an opportunity zone was. I had no idea any of this stuff. And I remember the first time that we actually sat down in the studio that you call, what is it now? What is it? I remember just OC4.
Yeah, we've changed our name. We're now Operate.
Yes.
And,
okay.
Really it was to explain to the world who we are. We're operators. And we're based in Orange County, but we work with companies, at this point we're working with companies all over California. We've even started to look at companies outside of California as our presence and interest has grown from other places. But we rooted here. We had got a really strong sort of operator first mindset about how to build companies. We also invest, but we're operators first, which is why we changed the name, because people kept fixating on OC and said, no, we're here, but let's be clear about who we are. And I think that's been really resonant. People have really gotten that in the last couple months.
I think the one thing I remember, because I remember where we sat, and we sat on a really cool couch in a really cool nook of the studio.
Sure.
And there was the logo OC4. And then I saw the logo change on LinkedIn. I'm a big follower of yours on LinkedIn. I keep bringing this up. But and it was it said Operate, and I was like, what happened? He's got rid of that old office or something. That's what I thought, because I wasn't following the name change.
Still here. It was identity. We quickly, when we named the studio initially, really quick, kind of the working title, like a lot of startups, really. I mean, this was our startup.
Yeah.
I have been in a number of startups where we've name changed pretty early on, and so I was comfortable with it.
Did you lose? Do you feel like you lose any cachet by switching a brand halfway through? Not that it was halfway through,
No. I mean, I think you do an evaluation of, I've had a couple people say, hey, I really like that OC4 name. But I've had 10x more say this name makes way more sense.
Yeah.
That gives me
Okay.
good validation. But that's the same kind of discussion I have with a lot of founders where I'll say, name seems okay for right now. Not in the priority list of all the things that I feel like we need to address. But at some point, it may make sense to change it. And sometimes
I think
it's a realization of, if you start really narrow, you're focused on a narrow problem, and then you start having success to realize, hey, I can solve more problems for this same customer and expand the scope and expand the vision. It may naturally make sense to change the name.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to the podcast for a second. I feel like I've taken over your show, but it's a mixture.
I got plenty of questions for you, man.
Well, one thing I absolutely love, which is, at least for my listeners, they need to take note in the fact that I didn't even think this was going to this interview was going to happen like this fast, that quick. And the fact that you just have your Apple earbuds in and you're just like, let's record. That is the shit people need to do more often, is stop overthinking the production value of the content that they put out there. So like the only reason I have this microphone is because it swings from my desk.
I love that.
Right?
I have one in the other room. We built out, of course, you have to, I totally agree with it. Like I'm a bias to action for sure, as you can imagine. We built a studio here in the studio. So we've got the Meta studio in the studio right as COVID was hitting. We've had, I think, 2 guests in.
Okay.
And so most of it's been virtual. And so I've gotten super comfortable with, how to do it. Now, normally, let you in on a secret. Normally I do send out ahead of time to my guests a little bit of an outline of like, here's sort of a rough idea of what I think we should probably talk about. But I knew you could just roll with it. And so, I've done this
on the fly.
With a few people that I trust are going to be, very capable. And somebody who is a podcast host like you is absolutely capable to just go with it.
That might be true. Like I think it is kind of an exercise, right? Where you're not comfortable behind a microphone, or like, even I remember when I didn't have my headset on, like putting on a headset for the first time and listening to yourself, that even kind of throws you off. And all of a sudden you start to overthink making anything before you put it out there. To tie that back up into Operate, when you actually get a chance to help other operators build their companies, how much of it is just like, shut your fucking brain off, Tim, right? Like, stop overthinking this problem and start executing. How often do you run into that problem when you help people operate?
Oh, it's a lot. And I think in many cases, those are the things that up front we try to diagnose to decide, can we work with this person? Because I have a lot of conversations where people are ready to go through their pitch deck. And I don't want to go through their pitch deck, because my attitude is, your pitch deck is you on your best day. It's you pretending like you've got it all figured out. And if you think about, in most cases, we're getting involved early, really early. And I know they don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. And so I try to give them permission to say, look, I know you don't have it all figured out. What I want to understand is, what's your approach for how you're going to try to go figure it out?
How are you going to try to figure it out?
And how are we going to potentially do this together? And if we feel like in doing it together, we're going to have a great time, we're going to have a much higher likelihood of success, and we think this is a really important thing to help you go figure out, then we'll probably get involved. But if it's, stubbornness about, no, I already have it all figured out, that's usually a red flag that we're going to probably.
Well, what's funny, Carrie, is the
other is the overthinking, where it's
I feel like I've gotten in some hot water sometimes where I admit I don't have this figured out. And like they there's not like a meeting of the minds when you're the entrepreneur talking to a would-be investor. And you go, I don't know. We were talking right before this. I don't know where I'm going to put all this money.
Mhm.
Right. But like, here's where we've put the money we've had so far. And this is what it's worked on. And it's like, I'm not a fan of like, what good do you think financial projections do? Like and at what stage do they become even more paramount to your success?
Financial projections.
Did I say protections?
I'm not sure, but I
That's what you heard.
Protections. That's right. So I mean, at the stage where I get involved, I barely consider them. Because again, I know I want to understand again, how are you thinking about the likely value levers in this business? Are there other examples out there, whether it's business models or approaches to how you're going to go reach customers, things that you can at least correlate is, again, showing me that you know how to learn, how to synthesize other information that I care about. And I want to know that there's some sensibility to it. If you're telling me I can get a customer for $1 and everybody else in the marketplace is getting a customer for $1,000, I'm going to be a little skeptical.
Sure.
Do you know what you're talking about? So there's some amount of credibility baked into financial projections. I tend to coach people, do a top down, looking at sort of total market down, and do a bottom up. And that gives you some sense of boundaries. But as far as the accuracy of them, I know they're off. My hope is that they're off wildly because you're conservative, not because you're way overly confident, right? I think more often than not, it's the overconfidence. And so, so they become more important as more of the money has a direct financial input output, right? So if you know, and you can go to an investor and say, look, you give me $1 and I'll give the business back 10, they're going to say, how many dollars can I give you?
Yeah. I think what's funny is I think, as you know, we saw each other again during Jason's launch accelerator. And how much I had this thesis all the way through. And that thesis was no one invests in a fucking pitch deck, right? Like, I get it. It's pitching people. But like there are things from the outset that people don't invest in. Number one, just doesn't fit a thesis. And then you're ranked and everything else. It's like rank and file, right? So have you ever, this is for my own case study, have you ever gotten a pitch deck and made a check based on the pitch deck? And if so or if not, at what point after that pitch do you end up making a decision, and based on what?
So I don't just personally, I don't think I'm capable of, and partly maybe because I don't have enough money I'm willing to put at risk, that I would write a check solely on a pitch deck. So I don't think it just doesn't fit who I am. But you got to remember, I'm not an investor. I don't hold myself out as an investor. I'm an entrepreneur.
An operator.
I'm an operator. I'm a company builder who uses money as one of the levers to create successful companies. Because I know. And so I think as a result, I'm so keen on the entrepreneur, on the team, on how we're going to go attack this. How do we go create unfair advantage? Those are the things that so I typically want to get involved in things because I feel like I can be really additive, and the entrepreneur wants us involved because they see it too.
How much challenge?
We'll sort of go, hey, we're pretty self-aware, self-actualized. We have limited time. We want to really work with people we love. I was just on right before you with one of our founders who I absolutely adore and love and want to do anything I can to help her. And I wake up trying to figure out things that I can do to help move the company forward. It's weird, but that's who I am.
Yeah. I think that's what you need though. Like when you're coming from like an operator or a practitioner's mindset, I mean, I think that's where you how many times can you be thinking about ways to help the different companies. I guess said it another way, like you wake up thinking about all the companies that you're helping operate.
I don't wake up every day thinking about the same. I think about different ones. It's like what's on my mind.
It's not every day her company.
Not every day, but
Okay.
But what happens, because now the good thing is I've got this portfolio, and so now when I'm talking to somebody, I don't have one thing on my mind. I've got several things, and I can almost connect something to every conversation that I'm having, and that's been really the fascinating thing over the last year, is that as we built a nice base, if I'm talking to a law firm, I have a whole group of companies that I can potentially look to them to work with. If I'm talking to a strategic, I can usually have something, and maybe it's not even one of our companies. Maybe it's somebody that I've talked to that I'm able to connect in. And so I think that's where it's really helped me be who I am, where I'm a connector and a puzzle maker. And
a puzzle maker.
That's a big part of how I think about it. Like each company is sort of its own unique puzzle that we're trying to, without knowing what all the pieces are, we're trying to piece it together.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think as you think about ideas, right, and you bring these ideas and this I would call it like an operating plan to the founder. Mm-hmm. How much pushback do you get, and how much pushback are you comfortable with getting before you're like, hey, no, listen, Mr. Finger, you listen to me?
I don't have a good answer to that. And I think we're still figuring some of that out. But here's the way I would answer that is we are very clear with the founders that we don't ever have to be right. Mm-hmm. That's not our objective. I don't ever keep score at the end of the day and say, how many times was I right today? That's not how I think about it. We think about how do we as a group have more rigorous debate, discussion, conflict on the key decisions and the key things we need to go figure out, such that we create a higher likelihood we're going to figure it out effectively.
So it's a team sport.
It's really team sport. Yeah, I talk a ton about that, about company building is a team sport. And if the founder always has to make the decision, always has to be right, probably not one we'll work with. And that's okay. Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of different ways. Right. There are plenty of different ways to build companies, but somebody like that is probably not as likely to attract and retain the best people, because they're more likely to bring them in to try to control them, as opposed to bring them into the team and empower them to do great work and contribute, right? And so some of this is early identification of the likely culture this company will turn into as it grows. So
diagnose me. So as I think about, I once said this when I was in the corporate grind, and I said, I'm a team player, but it's got to be my team. So like I'm LeBron James on this team here. Mm-hmm. You guys have a great role, right? And but I'm getting that scoring title, and I've thought about that at the beginning, right? Like with me, and thinking about that's why I get fired from every company I've ever worked for, is that I struggle to work for other people. Like there's a direct contrast between having an authority problem, which I clearly have, and then like a lot of entrepreneurs can't be team players in the real sense of like, I can just be part of. That's why they can't work for other people and they start their own companies, because they want the unilateral decision in some kind of way. And you've got to bridge that gap. And I'm trying to think, I've come into it now from that early mindset going, man, my God, do I want to like hire the best and just let them go?
Yes.
Like still my team, maybe I'm the coach now, I don't want to be the LeBron James.
But do you think about this idea that these other people now are working for you? Do you like that?
I like the idea that I don't have to do the job they're doing anymore.
Mhm.
You know, like when I think it's taking away, when my
Do you want
wife,
them to
because I work
defer?
85 hours a
Yeah.
week.
Do you want them to defer to you because you're the boss?
Meaning what?
Just if it's your team, do you if there are issues or they disagree, um, if you hold their
I don't have
fate,
to
if
be in
you
the middle
hold
of
their
every
fate,
decision, I
mhm,
guess.
those
Like
are
I
the
don't have
things
to
that
be
could,
in like I wouldn't hire someone if I had to tell them what to do all the time.
mhm.
Right? Like I do also want to make myself obsolete, right? You hear that adage a lot. Where it's like make yourself you want to run a business where you don't need to be needed anymore. And it's like I would love to not be needed for like a little while.
Mhm.
You know, and part of that is hiring the right people.
Mhm.
Like you've obviously come across some of those individuals that it's like you can't work for other people and you want it to be your team. I don't have a problem with like letting go, but like if there's a tie between two employees, like I don't mind breaking the tie,
Sure.
right? Like how do you reconcile that?
So I'm a little bit of an authority issue for sure. I've always had a
Yeah,
somewhat of a challenge with authority because I wanted to really be convinced that the authority was helpful and
mm,
not a relic of a hierarchical structure that just was in place because it was in place. I wanted that to be in place because it made sense to be in place. And so
gotcha.
early as I started to get put into leadership positions and as I started to have people that were on my team, I tried to make it very clear to them that I didn't view it as them working for me. It really, as much as I possible,
Mm,
I was trying to make it me working for them, or me, minimally that we were actively choosing to work together. And that my view was as a leader, they were choosing every day to come in and be a part of this team, and that they had the choice to not.
yeah, yeah,
And so any sense of that they, were obligated to me, I thought was just a weird sort of false sense. Right now, that can
sure.
run into problems as you work up. Now, the challenge you can run into in companies at times is some people will, if they struggle with authority looking upwards and they have a team that they manage or lead, they may defer to their team, and that becomes their
Mm,
first team. And really,
gotcha.
your as a leader, your first team needs to be the team of peers, or sort of your senior team. So that I've seen that happen where someone gets let go because they're not good with their peers, even though their team loves them, and they're
Yeah,
creating discord across the organization because their team's isolated from the rest of this company and machine, right? So you have to really orient to the senior most team that you're a part of as really your first team, where you're building your trust, and your team needs to see that as well.
yeah,
And that's where I think some people can get into challenges. But I think a lot of good entrepreneurs struggle with authority and being controlled, because usually just to them it doesn't make sense. That's where I've had challenges where I've said, look, if you have the better solution, if you have the better answer, I'm all for it. But if
sure.
I have a better one, or somebody on my team has a better one, this should be democratic in that we should probably be striving for the best outcome and the best answers, not
Yeah,
what you decided to do. Now, in the case of we don't have good information, or we need to break a tie or make a decision, those just don't happen very often. Let's be real. They're,
sure. Yeah.
that's not that common,
Where you
especially.
just wake up out of bed with like this idea that it wasn't tied to any metric
That's right.
or any reason in the app or anything qualitative even.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I clearly, based on how you described it, you were destined to become an entrepreneur. what you probably want to just be cognizant of as you continue to evolve as a leader is how do you move from this is my team to this is our team. And ideally, in my opinion, if your team members have as much ownership over the company in their mind as you do, that's a really good thing, because guess who's going to get the glory regardless? You're
Me.
the CEO, you're the founder, you're
That's
the
why I do
biggest
this.
equity owner. So
I do it only for the glory,
yes.
Gary. My love language, words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I need to be told, my wife knows this, I need to be told how amazing I am, how determined, how big a dreamer, right? Like, no gifts. Well, I actually do like gifts. Well, my second best love language is gifts. So I need to be told how great I am, and I need the recognition.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that's huge, because then you can either explain that to your team, or you can start to say, okay, how do I expand myself a little bit to maybe not need all those things? Because I know I'm going to get the glory. I know that this is my company. I'm going to probably get more motivation and be more inspiring to my team members if they feel the same sense of ownership, or close to the same sense of ownership as I do.
Do you think you ever get to that point? Like, I'm going through that right now, where we have certain people on board that eat, sleep, and breathe and die the company.
Yeah, your early people are your most likely to do so.
Yeah, and I think like thereafter, it just kind of becomes I love this whole crap about we hire the best. Everyone says this, and it's like,
not everybody is accurate there, because there aren't that many.
Well, right.
There is
You're not
distribution
like
curve out there.
Yeah, like Elon is like, our engineers, the engineers that leave us or can't stomach us, go to Apple. And you're like, it's the same thing. You cannot possibly have the best. Tesla can't have the best. The best they're so good. There's a lot of good people and great people, but you can't have everyone can't have the best of engineer or the best operators or the best this. I try to get rid of those like superlatives like in the company. Like even I'm not above any task.
Sure.
So like I know I say, oh, glory's great, but I'll take out the fucking trash. Like I love the remedial I'll go, please, I would love to make your copies. I go grab coffee for everyone else. Like that's what I want to do, the mindless shit for like 15 minutes.
You know who? I mean, Tony Hsieh, just a tragic loss.
Yeah, that sucks.
But I mean, he made a huge impact on a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders about that. So many stories were shared over the last few days about those experiences with him, as at his own party, serving hors d'oeuvres or getting people drinks, or making just that he was that. And you can be that, and that can be part of that sort of service culture. That
absolutely.
And you sort of have to live that way. I mean, I grew up in retail. I feel like most of what I learned from my father and my grandfather, and it was about don't ask people to do anything you wouldn't be willing to do yourself.
Yep, that's how I live.
Lead by example. So I totally agree with that. You don't want to do those things to not make a decision that needs to be made, or you have to sometimes be careful about that from a perceived time management standpoint. But I think that in general, that's a great way to be and lead, and can create a lot of really good culture in an organization.
Absolutely.
So I think it's super cool. So let's turn. I want to hear more about how things are going with the company. So for my audience, let's walk back a year. Tell me, about the company and what's happened over the last year.
So, just as a little brief background, I came with nothing, trailer trash, out of a trailer park, right? Like first generation Michigander, grew up with nothing, single mom, and I learned very often that we were going to have nothing, or I was going to have to get it myself, right? Because if I went to my mom and was like, I want to go to Disney World, that wasn't a possibility. So I was always chasing profit, right? Like I was always trying to sell stuff, and I was always trying to have like an entrepreneurial, I'll call it at that point, scheme, because there was nothing really, you're not building a real business at 11.
Mm-hmm.
You're not incorporating anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always trying to work up like the courage to go out in the neighborhood and sell myself, essentially do chores, do all these other things to afford the things that we couldn't get as like a family.
Mm-hmm.
So a little later in life, we never really had like access to technology. I remember in high school, I had to go to my grandpa's house to have access to internet. And I graduated in like 2006, right? So there was always this disconnect between me and technology and like having access to it. So I always had this idea that I wanted to help that issue. And I kind of lost it in college as I became the first person in my entire family to go to college. And it was hard. Came up through like city college ranks, like the hard knocks way to go, and then graduated from Michigan State. And after that, I worked at like a Big Four accounting firm, chasing the paycheck, right? Growing up with nothing, you're always trying to chase that thing. So left there, effectively just like parted ways mutually, right, with this company, and worked for my first venture-backed startup, delivering, or it was like collecting offline information for small businesses and putting it online, like business card information. And that's when I knew that like I was destined to be a professional entrepreneur. When I was an early employee, I the first week I was ever there, I structured the compensation for 3,000 contractors across the country. And I was like, this is the drug, right? Like, that's it.
I've told so many people, this will spoil you forever. And,
yes, it will.
Yeah, it is. You do something really cool like that you figured out that, nobody else has figured out. And it's like a drug. I totally agree with you. That's cool.
And then comparing that with being 1 in 141,000 at Ernst & Young, right? Like you're a cog in a gear, and then you made this impact across the entire country of thousands of people. So that is insane. 5 months later, that went out of business, right? So it was like, make your own thing. And I started a company called Air5, which was a digital business card exchange. It was essentially its first version of what the digital business card exchange would be. But I ended up pivoting that company 14 different times. And why I did that is because I was always looking what the market would pay for, right? Like I wasn't into this to be a user-generated business, because I need to pay my bills. I need money, right? And I don't like begging investors for anything. So I did try the game, but I ended up monetizing each one of 14 stages, 5 figures each time.
That's amazing.
So that was my first 6-figure no-code company. No-code is companies that are, for those of you that don't know, non-technical people. Like there were a lot of companies and industries that you needed to be a coder or a developer to build things like emails and websites. And there's a faction of platforms that are no-code, and you don't need to be a developer. So you can send your own email campaigns or build your own website templates or that kind of stuff. So my second company was essentially taking the 14 pivots and selling each one to someone that was interested. Like just building in this automated workflow that would connect someone with a freelancer that would use Zapier and Typeform and WordPress and all these things that I put together. And I sold it so many times, I was able to create my second 6-figure no-code company. And that kind of dovetailed into what I'm building now, which is v.one. And v.one is a no-code platform that is really easy, that truly serves the 96% of no-coders out there that are non-technical, that do not know how to navigate a CMS. So the stat is 96% of people don't know how to navigate a CMS or a content management system.
And tell my, I have been around this software world too long to know most of the lingo. So give an example of who would come to v.one and what are they trying to build?
So we've kind of helped this beachhead market, or the early customers of our platform that were more 17 to 25-year-olds, college age, high school age students, build app ideas that they wanted to build businesses around. So that's kind of evolved into any non-technical individual who has an idea for an app can go in and simply select a template or build from scratch, or input their Canva designs and build a functional app right from their Canva studio. So it's anyone who's looking to build a real business around a mobile app.
And so as you think about those people, tell me how many of those are, this is a new business model, new business idea that could be delivered through an app, versus I have a business that I'd like to extend into.
So it's about 60-40.
Okay.
So 60% of our current before, I mean, early it was more 90% were new. I don't have a business yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now 40% of our customers have existing businesses with like e-commerce stores. So they want to take we have a new integration with Webflow. So you can take your Webflow CMS items or e-commerce products and then put a paywall on them. Put a paywall on them and then start selling things. And one of the benefits that I give to those small businesses is people are 10 times more likely to open a push notification than they are an email.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, again, a form of marketing that you can control and you can own, and it costs nearly nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you pay MailChimp $150 a month for, some automation and some things like that, but like we have it built in right to our platform for a lot of these small businesses. So 40% are existing businesses, 60% are still that original beachhead market that we were going after.
So I'm coming to you, I'm thinking about building an app. What's your point of view on native mobile apps versus just web, mobile browser experiences?
I think
my phone is littered with apps. So I really need more apps.
So what is your favorite app?
LinkedIn.
So LinkedIn, when you're on your phone, do you go to LinkedIn web or do you go to the LinkedIn app?
I'll use the app.
Right.
It's my favorite.
So,
but
right.
I would say, second most, other than text, probably is Safari. Is probably the one that I use second most. I probably have
like that
200 Safari tabs open on my phone right now.
So that's kind of the point that I like when I get from people that, people are getting app exhaustion. And it's like, they're not getting app exhaustion, they're getting business exhaustion. Meaning they're not interested in your company. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm interested in LinkedIn, I'm downloading the LinkedIn app. If I'm interested in Coach Steve, I'm downloading Coach Steve's app to get his native content, and I want that experience. So it is.
But the bar is higher though, right? Coach Steve has to be a lot more compelling now to end up on the real estate on my phone versus, hey, Coach Steve, can you just distribute your content on YouTube or can I just have a bookmark? Yeah, it's an interesting evolving ecosystem.
It is. So like I never sell it that you're going to get new customers from having an app. Mm-hmm. You're going to get more from your current customers.
Okay.
Right. So like you're going to retain them. So there's another stat, people that have a mobile app, 3x revenue. Hmm. Right. Because again, it's the engagement. It's here's the deal. I'm going to open your push notification. I'm going to go for rewards. There's a lot of things that no one goes to the mobile web for, mm-hmm. but like the future is mobile until a phone is in your contact lens. Mm-hmm. Right. It's a huge draw to have those things that a lot of other people wouldn't had access before, which is like building their own mobile app and building it quickly.
So what's the path for these folks? Are most of them staying on your v.one that they built with you permanently, or are you the the v.one, as we talked about when we met, with the goal that this helps them validate something that then they might ultimately build somewhere else.
So for me, it was simply building the product that I wish existed in the world, which was a product that followed my entire journey, which was I didn't have a non-technical person, so I have to start somewhere, right? So I build in our platform, and then you have to release fast. So you release something fast, and then you get feedback on it. And you can iterate on that feedback, and you can build into the builder, you can push a new version. And then at some point it gets so good that you want to leave or get off or take off. And you have two paths at that point. One is you can stay on our platform and continue to iterate and build, or for a little added fee, you can export your source code and build with your tech team. So simply put, you have the optionality to stay on our platform, and you get some of the key effects of that would be like custom analytics and a custom admin portal and a lot of these other things that you would have to build. So it works to help and support, and you got to host them yourself and do these other things yourself. So there's a lot of heavy lifting that's outside the app that we take care of for you. But at the same time, I want people to not delete this version and go build it elsewhere, because they're going to do that anyway. They're going to be like, cool, this v.one was great. Now I'm just going to piece. We want you to download, export your source code and work with your newly found technical co-founder or the guy that you've paid to do it. So those are knowing also 90% of businesses fail. So if we become the easiest one they can launch at and start to build and monetize and prove concept, they'll come back.
Makes sense. So here's the big question of the day.
Okay.
Have you figured out how to help people not have to pay the Apple and Google payment tax?
So yes.
Oh, you heard it here.
So this is what's great is, one, I think Apple just came out with
they did come out with the reduced. Yeah, they came to, for if you ever, but only if you're small, which is most.
Yeah, you have to be under $1 million in revenue or something, which is most people.
Yes.
Right, like especially most people that are building on our platform. That is, we have found a way to get around that. I can't tell what. I can't tell it. I can't tell it on here.
Yeah, go reach out to Jeremy if you're working on an idea.
Everyone said that so often, and I backed into it early on with one of my companies, where I was like, cool, we could just do this, and they don't care. So we had a little hack in our builder that we help people with doing that. It's not actually an in-app purchase by Apple's definition. So it skips over that piece. It's not you're buying it with Apple. It's you have to put in your credit card information, but it's still, yes, what a user would consider in-app purchase.
Okay.
We'll help you get around. We'll help you get around it.
Do you counsel me on whether I should even build what I'm dreaming about?
I'm not going to be the judge and jury of your idea.
All right.
The market will be the judge and jury in your idea.
How about community?
I try to make it as affordable as possible.
Could I pay people in the v.one community to tell me, because my time still matters, right?
Yeah. Well, your time should matter, and that's why you should launch on v.one, because you could be fastest to market.
Sure.
You could figure out your idea is garbage with market validation or invalidation faster than any other platform. So don't spend a bunch of time learning the learning curves of the bubbles and the other competitors out there. Launch something now and get market feedback, not me, not Carrie. Like, get the market feed. Will they buy it, or will they not use it? Will it check your analytics and go, cool, that was worth $8 a month, because that's all we charge.
So your friend, Chris Swain, is now teaching a class at USC, NoCode, for startup entrepreneurs. I thought it was awesome. I think that's the coolest thing. What did you think about that?
So I love Chris. Turns out that he took family vacations to Michigan, where I'm from, and we hit it off. And we structured, we got each other's point of views on how we could better structure some no code content, and the kids in that class where they're prototyping and learning and doing a lot of things, Chris is innovative.
Mhm.
And it's really great. And he's very receptive to no-code founders coming in and teaching and instructing, where we'll be working with his class, I'm sure, going forward,
So should more
about being the fastest to market.
Yeah, should more schools be teaching no-code classes?
Yes. And Chris has been so freaking innovative with doing it. He's kind of showing me that he was showing me the ropes on how to do it at other universities. I probably owe him some bips.
Probably. I agree. What department should that be in? It probably shouldn't be in computer science, because that's going to turn away the no coders anyway. So what department should it be in?
So we found a little hack, and it is something that you have shown me, which is if you go to the professors, number one, you can skip all the admin crap, right? Like, you don't have to sell into the universities. You just have to sell into the professors, right? Like, get the professors to experiment with your tool, and then get exposure.
What department though? Where are you finding that? Is this the marketing professors? Is this the economic professors?
I think it's department agnostic, right? Where everyone, I mean, weirdly enough, at another university that we're working with, it is there is a prototyping computer science class that's not just for computer science majors. So it's an outlier that I didn't expect. So we went to another college and did the same thing. So while it's really easy to say, like, oh, business majors or marketing majors, it's a lot of the clubs that you're working with, like at these colleges and universities. And then I've always found, here's a little hack. I always found like professors with like innovation classes, right? So like those tend to bring in the most ideas on Vanguard there.
Sure, you got to have something new to talk about, right? That's what.
Yeah,
innovation. Right. Okay, how's the business doing?
Terrific. We were in the launch accelerator, which you know, and then since we got out there, we doubled revenue. Now we more than doubled revenue.
So we're tracking close to maybe this one being your first 7-figure no-coder.
It will be. This will be the first 7-figure the only person in the entire world. Can you believe that? And you know me when I was nothing. And you took me under your wing and you got me here.
I did very little, Jeremy. This was all you. I'm so
all you did was plant the seeds, my man. You planted seeds.
That's part of my job.
And you do it well.
What have you learned about yourself so far that is new from your prior startups?
I knew I could be a great entrepreneur. What was the unknown is that I didn't know if I could be a great CEO. And that's the jury's still out, right? But like, we'll call it a manager, right? Like my first company had like 5 or 6 contractors. And a lot of times when, like, no one wants to be the CEO. I really believe everyone likes how it looks or there's a title, but if you really take the role seriously, you will be prematurely gray all over the place. It's just like you are absorbing every issue, every problem. You have to manage yourself. You have to manage down. You have to manage up to some investors, externally to advisors. And you're constantly taking it from all sides, right? Like customers, employees, new recruiting, investors, advisors, everyone has an opinion, and you're kind of like the arbiter of all of it.
And you're kind of like, how are you evolving on that to just make sure you stay healthy, happy?
Ooh, healthy,
steady.
I don't know. Like the one thing that makes me really, really, really happy. This is the problem. This is the problem, Carrie. That I don't know if I'm on a healthy trajectory because I love work too much, right? So like it's stressful and it's horrible. And I actually have an entrepreneur article that's entrepreneurship is a disease.
It's so like for me, it's definitely an affliction. I totally agree with that.
My high in life where I'm actually happy is like one of two things. I check off things off my task list that I've done that I've like maybe have been waiting, and Stripe notifications on my Apple Watch.
Hmm.
So nothing else. My wife, I love my wife and my dog. But like outside of those, if it were just talking about what you're doing all the time and like at work, those two things, I don't have any hobbies. Like it's like 85% of my time is my company, and 15% of my time is like my wife and my dog that I absolutely love.
Yeah, I would recommend, and I've experienced with some of that as well, where I've had those seasons of life like that.
Yeah.
Is to every once in a while change seasons. So maybe adopt health as a hobby for
like, and what would you say to
so
try to do?
I mean, and it could start with something like diet, right? Where you go, hey, let me just take it like for a season. Let me just, you're an entrepreneur, you're an experimenter. So apply the entrepreneurial energy to other areas of your life. And what I've done at times, I've experimented. Like, okay, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to stop doing this and see how I feel. And or I'm going to take these meetings as walking meetings, or I'm going to get up a little earlier and go for a run, or find something, or I used to play this sport, so I'm going to see if I can find somebody to go play this sport with, and use it as a time to to get a little exercise, and maybe it's somebody who can give me some advice and be a peer as well, because it's lonely. And
it is.
I think we often will try to bear it all because we have that ownership of it, and we have to go find. We're meant to be around other people. I was running a company years and years ago, and I just started a support group, a breakfast club that I started, and it's still going now. I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone in feeling alone and needing to connect with others. And so now it still goes to this day because there are other people that need that outlet, and I'm happy to just be the catalyst of bringing people together. So I think
you do a great job of that, by the way.
So I would challenge you to don't go radical about it, but just introduce new experiments into other areas. Because I'm not a full believer in this idea of balance. My partner calls it work-life integration, which I think is a better way to think about it.
Sure.
That we have to find ways to integrate all these things together. That would be my suggestion is, try some new life experiments around.
I love connecting with people. Like I love relationships, but the only ones that stick around, or the only ones that I think are like truly, truly, truly valuable. Dude, every time I go on a hike, or I go golfing, or I try to do these things, the only things that come out of my mouth is something business strategic. Is like something you don't want to be in here, right? Like it's hard to sleep. It's hard, like, and you're thinking like, oh my God, like I just need to pop an Ambien. Where's the NyQuil, right? Like I need to like quiet my head. I need to go to sleep. And you're thinking like talking to the engineers until 2 in the morning. Like I'm waking up at 6 for this meeting on the East Coast. And like, if that stuff drives you, and you're like, I love this because it's when
great.
I get to talk
that's
about
what it's
business.
Supposed to. Yeah, that's the way. It's great that you're there. But you got to remember, it may not. This one will be here for now. It may not be with you forever. And you never know what. So be prepared for other elements of life to be enjoyable. I'm not suggesting go find a hobby. I love golf.
I've tried.
I barely play golf these days because I'm having so much fun doing this that I choose to exchange that time. So I get it.
Yeah, I see that.
But it's seasons of life. But I would encourage you to experiment a little bit. So I'm running up against time now. I want to know what other advice. So people are out there. We're seeing a spike in entrepreneurs.
We are.
Which is awesome. I hope that more of these are big idea entrepreneurs than just entrepreneurship by necessity of all the people that have experienced job loss. That will remains to be seen. I've got a great idea. I want to go potentially start something other than going to v.one. Maybe it's not an app, but just I'm ready to go be an entrepreneur. Yep. What would you advise people that are thinking about it to do to really determine whether that's a good idea for them or not? To become
I would start talking to people about it. Mm-hmm. Number one, right? Just and see where every conversation you talk to everyone and see where all those go. And then I would write notes on those conversations. Mm-hmm. And then I would start making, this is just me, but I would make a makeshift word cloud and see what came out of it. Mm-hmm. Right? So for me, it's all about, a lot of people keep their ideas to themselves because they're worried about idea theft. Okay. No one is stealing ideas, number one, right? Little things here and there. It's not a big problem like people actually make it out to be, or Hollywood makes it out to be. So talk to people about the idea, right? Flesh it out. See will people who help you, make lists, and then write down the feedback and see if it's something you actually want to pursue. That's what I would say. If it's not v.one at yourv1.com, build your app really easy. If it's not your v.one, talk to people about your idea, get some feedback on it as early as possible. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, you don't want it clouding up that brain. So it's just about doing things.
I like it. Jeremy, thank you for joining me on the Operate
Carrie,
Pod.
No, thank you for joining me on Not Boring Business.
I'm happy to. Hopefully I wasn't boring.
No, man. This was terrific.
This was super fun.
This was therapeutic for me.
Good.
So I'm glad to have you.
I know my audience will take a lot away. I mean, we've never talked about no code. So that in and of itself will be a great insight for them. And I appreciate you for that. And I wish you all the best with v.one. And we will celebrate when you hit that 7-figure run rate for sure.
I'm in. I'm into this.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Carrie.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Operate Podcast. If you like this conversation, as a favor to me, you can rate us, review us, or subscribe, or tell your friends. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at Operate Podcast. Until next week, get out there and operate.